Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to Donovan Lewis, a marine vertebrate zoologist at Blue Planet Aquarium. Over a brew we chat about what it takes to look after so many exotic marine animals and how he blogs and photographs them. Do you fancy a brew? Donovan Lewis, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Have you got a brew?
I have indeed. Right here.
Good lad. I like that mug with a bunny rabbit on. Very sort of animal orientated background there. It looks like squirrels and all sorts of stuff going on. So you can tell you're into your animals and that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Love them.
do you want to give us a bit of an intro into who you are, what you do for a living, and where you are in the world, and then we'll see where it goes?
Absolutely. So my name is Donovan Lewis. I live in the United Kingdom, originally from Ellesmere Port, and I work as a shark diver at Blue Planet Aquarium in Ellesmere Port. My job entails diving with the sharks, of course, feeding, cleaning, maintaining the main exhibit at the aquarium, as well as taking members of the public diving with the sharks for an experience, changing perceptions on sharks in general. I also help out with photography at Blue Planet Aquarium, both in and out of the tank to aid in their marketing. And I'm an underwater photographer and diver as a hobby as well.
Well, that's kind of how we met, wasn't it? The NUPG, the Northern Underwater Photography Group.
It was indeed.
Probably about this time last year.
It's been that long.
It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous how quick. For a shit year, it's gone pretty quick, thank God.
It has.
I think the last sort of interaction we had, short of just chatting on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, we were going to come and see you just before lockdown, weren't we? We were going to come to your work for the day. It was just before, it was on the cusp of lockdown, and we were like, do we go out? Do we stay in? We decided to stay away, which I think was probably the best call now, looking across the year. Has it affected you as a business and you at work much, the lockdown? So, I don't mean me not coming, I just mean the lockdown.
No. It has affected us, you not coming though, buddy. I would say that Blue Planet Aquarium during the first lockdown, dive team were mainly, so we went down to like a skeleton crew. Dive team were on call, ready to go in if anything needs to be done. But for the most part, we were furloughed, the same as everyone else. Blue Planet Aquarium, of course, just because everything else locks down, animals still need feeding, maintaining, looking after. So we were still business as usual in the scheme of things, that we still had staff on site 24 hours a day, cleaning and looking after everything. Yeah. But we were just closed to the public. And then when we opened up after lockdown, we reduced visitor capacity, which we had to due to social distancing and COVID-19. And also we put many measures in place. So it didn't affect us in like we had to close down or it was really, really bad for us. We were okay, I think, throughout lockdown. Yeah. But I mean, after lockdown, we were still running dive experiences, obviously under risk assessments and COVID secure. And we were still working as normally as we would do. And we've been working throughout the second lockdown this time. So all the dive team have been in helping. I'm not 100% sure in terms of, what happened with the funding and stuff like that for Blue Planet Aquarium, as we're not a charity. We're a large company. So we have aquariums all over the UK, not just aquariums, but many sites over different types and forms across the UK and over in Spain as well. Right. So I think we were slightly different because we weren't a charity, but for the most part, I do think we got through lockdown, which was the main thing.
Nice one. So how did you get into diving then? Where did you start?
Gonna go way back. When I was 4, I went to Blue Planet Aquarium when it first opened in 1998. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't find out until I was like 6 or 7. That I was actually the first person to have my birthday there when it first opened in 1998, which was like a huge thing for me back when I was an 8-year-old. And it was just amazing. I remember going into the aquarium and seeing Wilma, who's still there now. She's still in the tank. Seeing Wilma, and I was already kind of interested in whales and dolphins, like orcas and humpbacks. But when I saw the sand tigers, I was just completely blown away by how beautiful they were, how toothy they were, because children love toothy animals like T-Rex and crocodiles and stuff and sharks. And I just, from then on in, it was like verbal diarrhea for sharks. I just could not grasp how much I love them. It was just unreal. And then when I was 8, I did my first try dive in a swimming pool, and immediately was hooked on scuba diving. I caught the bug. But I was told you can't do your dive qualification till you're 14, and I was like, oh, okay, no worries. So I waited a couple of years. As soon as I was 14, I did my ocean diver, BZAC ocean diver, and kind of just carried on from there. So I did my sports diver, then converted to PADI, did my dive master, and worked my way up till I got my dive master. And you can work as a diver at Blue Planet Aquarium. Throughout all of this, so from the age of 14, I worked at Blue Planet as a VS presenter. So I helped out on face paints on the front of house, on the tours, the birthday parties, and working on that team helped my knowledge. So I expanded my knowledge by working with all these different kinds of animals. I perfected public speaking. So I did shows, talks, presentations, and this really helped when I went to university to study marine vertebrate zoology, because we had to have public speaking, and all of like the different factors kind of just came into one, which kind of helped me get the job as a diver at Blue Planet Aquarium, and I've been doing dive team full time since January 2018.
Well, that's the end of the episode then. That was quick, 15 minutes, done. If you were going to book a dive holiday now then,
yeah,
would you be looking at doing something similar? As in, would you be going to look at bigger stuff, or would you be going anywhere else? What would you be doing?
You know, point to stick it apart the world. Like I'm game to go there. I would love to go back to the Maldives again, just to explore different parts of the Maldives, because you've got places where you can dive for tiger sharks and bull sharks and threshers and stuff like that. And that, you know, the Maldives is a huge place. I'd love to go to the Galapagos Islands for the biggest whale sharks in the world, all the big pregnant females. There's the hundreds of scalloped hammerheads and the mola mola, and of course the lizards, the iguanas. I'd love to go to Socorro Islands and see giant melanistic mantas. You know, there's a lot of places on my list. The Bahamas as well. There's so many places on my list that I'm desperate to go to. But, you know, money makes the world go round, doesn't it? But, you know, I think my job helps, how to put it, satisfy my addiction, if that makes sense. So like, I get my shark fix every day, which is amazing. But, you know, I always want to experience other species. And I would love, actually, and a friend of mine found this quite surprising the other day, I'd love to experience wild sand tigers. Because I said to her, I'd love to go to Wolf Rock in Australia, swim with sand tigers. And she said, well, you swim with sand tigers every day. But I would love to experience wild sharks, wild sand tigers, and see how they compare to the captive sand tigers. Yeah. Because ours are massive pussycats, and they like to come in. They're really curious. They like to come in and have a good look and see what's going on. So it'd be really nice to see what the wild ones are like as well.
It does interest me that, whether there's a massive difference, because were yours bred in captivity as well?
So ours are all wild caught. I say that unfortunately, but Blue Planet Aquarium really try their best to stay completely away from removing from the wild. So we kind of consider our main tank as a kind of retirement home for sand tigers. So to give you a good example of a sand tiger that we had that we didn't remove from the wild, we've got our baby, which is called Dingle, and he's about 10 foot long, and he came from Dingle Aquarium in Dingle Island. Yeah. And he grew too big for his tank. So the tank was still fairly large for him, but ethically they were like, he's a bit big for the tank, let's send him to Blue Planet. Yeah. And we've got 5 sand tigers at the moment, but we actually have the capacity to house 9. So we've got way more space at the moment for more. If an aquarium was like, hey, we can't keep the sand tiger anymore, would you like to take them off our hands? And we do that to try and stem people removing from the wild, because we don't want to shorten their wild numbers.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So I went on Brian Davies' Scuba, and he does like a live. This is on YouTube. He does a live sort of scuba tuber podcast. So if you've got a YouTube channel and you're a scuba diver, he'll have you on. You talk for an hour or so, and it's live, which is really alien to me, because you've got people commenting. So you're having a live conversation with him and all the viewers. and we were talking about one of the questions he put to me was, if money was no object or no option, where would you go? And I'm like, I've no idea. Because, like you just quoted then, there's about half a dozen places, at least number one on your list, isn't there?
Yeah.
And how do you differentiate between them if somebody else is paying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just horrendous to think, what can I do with what little I've got left of my life and how much bank balance I have? It's nuts. So where did you pick up the bug for picking up your photography kit then?
It was weird. It was a really weird transition. I'll tell you at the beginning. So I was sat in a pizza house in university, and I was sat with the dive club at university, and I was sat with my instructor, and we were all talking about holiday trips, and we'd been to Egypt about 3 months before, and I said, why did we go to the Maldives? Like, how amazing would it be to go to the Maldives? And my instructor pipes up and goes, well, actually, I saw a cheap deal to the Maldives. And I said, oh my God, how much was it? And he said the amount. And I said, the money will be in your bank account tomorrow morning if you want to go. And he was like, yeah, grand. And before we knew it, there were 6 of us that were going to go.
No way.
And my instructor was like, hey, if you're going to go to the Maldives, you need a good camera. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I absolutely do need a good camera. So he was selling a setup, and I bought it off him. And at this point, I was still in the whole, I want to be a marine biologist. I want to be a researcher. I want to sit in front of a computer and do statistics for the rest of my life. And I went to the Maldives. I used my underwater camera. I photographed mantas and baby black tips in the shallows, and immediately was just completely hooked on the idea of capturing a moment that not many people get to see, because not many people get to go in the ocean and experience what we get to experience. And I really love that idea of capturing that moment, and also using it to help conserve on the natural world, because we are at a pinnacle point at the moment in our Earth's lifespan. And for 2 years, I used it to photograph a multitude of different things. And I was told at the Manchester Dive Show a few years back about the NUPG. And I was like, well, that just sounds like the best club, the best society ever. And I came along to a meeting, and I loved it from the moment I started. And, that's where I've been ever since. And thank God to Nick and Caroline of Frogfish. They really have been amazing in teaching me underwater photography stuff and helping me out with equipment, and purchased some equipment off them as well. And I absolutely love it, and love the whole process from getting in, taking the photo, and editing. The whole process I just find amazing. It's a really long answer.
No, it's cool. Are you at the point where you plan what you're going to do before you get in the water, or are you just, you put one lens on or another and hope for the best? Because that's where I'm at. That's why I'm asking. I'm still at that, I think.
At the moment, I haven't got a macro setup. I've got wide angle.
Yeah.
But when I go in the water, if I know I've got like a shoot at Blue Planet coming up, for example, I'll go home and I'll say, right, I took a photo of Alfie that way. How can I take a photo of Alfie in this way? And I sit and think over my shots a little bit.
Yeah.
And if I've got someone who's a model, let's say Georgia, for example, at Blue Planet, I always say to her, I've got this idea of an image. Do you think you can try and do that? And they go, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll give it a go. Of course, you get a bit of communication breakdown in the water, so you end up just like screaming at them under the reg, like, come closer. Yeah. But I do try and plan my shots a little bit.
Okay, there's 2 ways I can go in this, so don't let me forget either. What camera setup have you... Well, I'll just ask you them both at the same time. So what camera setup are you running now? And I've seen you in a lot of your photos at work, you're using full face masks more. Mm-hmm. Is that purely because it's more comfortable, or do you use comms? What's the script?
So we use underwater. So I'll start with the full face mask. We wear full face masks because we work under the HSC Archaeological and Scientific Diving ACOPS regulations. So we have to be able to communicate with each other. So we have the dive supervisor on the surface. He has a comms box that's wired to a transducer, and he can talk to us. We can talk back to him. So rather than communicating through hand signals, which we still can do, we have default taps to be able to tap each other in case we need to get someone's immediate attention. But in case we just want to have a general chat, we can just talk to each other due to the regulations we work under. It is also quite comfortable for wear full face masks. In the winter, when the temperature drops by 2 degrees, it can get a little bit nippy, keeps your face warm, which is quite nice. It's still 24 degrees, so it's not cold. And, you know, I'm not sure if this is part of your question as well, like about underwater photography. Does that hinder anything with the camera? It actually doesn't. You know, it's still quite easy to take a photograph with full face mask on. And my camera setup is a Nikon D7-100 with two in-on Z330s.
Right, so I need to step my game up now then. What housing have you got? If you tell me it's a Nauticam, I'm going weighing my credit card in now and buying one.
It is a Nauticam.
I hate you. Absolutely hate you. Your strobes are bigger than mine, and so is your housing. I fucking hate you. I was going to say, so talking about your degree, where did you do it? Tell me a bit more about it, will you?
So I studied marine vertebrate zoology at Bangor University. I was there 2013 to 2016. And I originally signed up for marine biology. And just before I went, a friend of mine rang me, and he literally just graduated from Bangor. And he said, "What course are you doing?" I said, "Marine biology." And he said, "Don't do that. Do marine vertebrate." He said, "It's more what you want to do." You know, everyone who knows what I like know that I like sharks over anything. So he said, marine biology is the study of ocean currents, underwater volcanoes, mountain valleys. But there is a lot of biology, but it's more about worms and polychaete worms, slugs, and then there's some big stuff like whales. Whereas marine vertebrate focuses on the big stuff. So in my third year, I had a 9-week module on sharks, just sharks.
That must have killed you. That must have been dead hard.
It was amazing. And the guy that led it was incredible as well. And we did, we had a shark dissection. I know it sounds awful. And then we also did a whale watching module where we actually went out on the Bangor University's research vessel, the Prince Madoc, and we went whale watching for 2 days. We did it from the boat and from the cliff. We didn't see any whales, but we saw Rizzo's dolphins, which are actually quite rare around Anglesey. We saw harbour porpoise, we saw 2 seals getting jiggy with it, and we saw gannets diving into the water. It was really quite cool to see that amount of life around the British coastline. But there's a whole range that you study from, sharks all the way down to worms. So we did days where you'd be sat looking through a microscope, looking at the jaw structure of a polychaete worm, and we'd have to draw it. And I know a lot of people that would be a bit like their nightmare, but it was so interesting to see these animals so up close. It was really quite incredible.
Awesome. How was Bangor?
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's like the easiest place in the world to have a pub crawl, let's put it that way.
Is it?
Just to add that on to the end.
Gleaming. Well, for me, there's everything I could possibly want. The coast, the hills, and everything in between.
Yeah.
You're not a million miles from anywhere there, whereas I feel if you went up into the middle of the Lake District, you're so remote all the time. Whereas at least Snowdonia is 20 minutes away. The other side of Anglesey is only 20 minutes away. You can go surfing on one side and diving on the other. And there's just everything. It's brilliant.
Well, you've got a seal colony. You've got Puffin Island where you can go swimming with seals. You've got puffins. You've got gannets. I'm trying to think. You've got shipwrecks. There's Holyhead Marina. There's the Great Orme where you've got the goats, which were on spring watch the other week, autumn watch, the other week. Snowdonia, of course. And then you've got Dorothea Quarry, which is a 30-minute drive from Bangor. So there's as you said, there's everything you could possibly want from a British countryside and coastline, shall I say. That's why it was so amazing.
So how long have you been with the NUPG then?
Now you've asked the question. How long has it been? The beginning of 2018. I think it was March 2018, and I think the first talk I went to was Alex Tattersall, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's a Nauticam rep, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find them...
Sell Nauticam stuff.
Yeah, I find them, them meetings so good. I mean, firstly, you go and have a curry. After that, obviously, they've got some well-documented or well-known people come in and give talks that you can just quite freely just put your hand up and ask them anything, can't you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm murder for doing it. Can I ask a newbie question? Because I'm frightened I'm going to look silly, but it's not necessarily. You don't know what you don't know, so you can just ask anyone, whatever.
I completely agree. Like the first, I'd probably say year that I went, the camera that I was originally sold by my instructor started to have a few faults, which, you know, I'm not sure if it was down to me or not. And so I didn't want to pay to upgrade it because it was quite an old setup. When I looked at the Canon 400D, it was like a 10-year-old camera.
Right.
But I found the meetings amazing because I just sat and listened, and I was still learning. Even though I wasn't taking photographs at that point, I was still learning. You know, and so I completely agree with you. The meetings are amazing.
If you can take your camera in the water with you at work most days, you're going to start finding your feet a lot quicker than I will, going once every blue moon for a half-hour dive during winter because it's freezing. So it is hard, no matter how much training you have.
I do, yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, like you know, it's like with any practical skill, it's just gaining that muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think how to describe it? Like, there's been times where I've done something for a while, and then it takes you a few times to be like, oh yes, now I remember, and like get that muscle memory back. But I was a bit gutted. Like 2020's been a pretty rubbish year, and I actually had a trip was in the works of being organised to Egypt to swim with the Oceanics in Marseille.
Yeah.
And 2020, me and the friends that were going to go, we just said let's just leave it this year. Let's do it next year, because no doubt if another lockdown comes in, which it has, we didn't want to lose our money, so we just left it.
We've got another one in May. It's the south of the Red Sea with Blue O2. So it takes Elphinstone, Daedalus, a few other bits like that. And it's all the bigger pelagic stuff, rather than the last year when we went, which was last September, so 2019, and that was all wrecks. And then we went to Brother Island, so we saw the Oceanics then, which was pretty ace. But my camera had already flooded, so I didn't get any footage of that.
Oh my god!
So
I've been gutted.
You know, you put your little sack inside the camera housing to just soak up any moisture.
Yeah.
Well, it was a night dive, and I was rushing. Never rush on a dive because you're gonna die, or your camera dies. And I must have just got the corner of it caught in the O-ring of the door. Didn't notice till I went down. So I gone in the water with my camera turned off, turned it on, got memory card error, left it for a bit of the dive, turned it back on, and I could just see in my through the binder, just see water. So flip it down, don't you, so it all goes into the actual port, and just try and get out the water as quick as you can. But it was too late then. I gutted really, but
dead camera.
Yeah.
No.
But it's better now because I've got a better camera, so it doesn't matter.
There's silver lining. Silver lining.
Absolutely. Well, gutted.
Can I ask what it was like to swim with the Oceanics?
Because we'd seen the diver the year before around the Christmas time when after his attack and they closed Brothers, and then on the boat they give a 20 or 30-minute lecture on how to behave, how to act, how to defend yourself if you need to from them. I wasn't as perhaps anxious, and I'm not an anxious person. I don't really scare very easily, but obviously you have your wits about you, and you know something's dangerous, so you try and mitigate those dangerous circumstances, don't you? So I was feeling easier, more comfortable being in the water, certainly going in with my wife. So we'd swam out, and there's the northernmost tip of the Brother Island, Big Brother I think it is. There's a wreck that drops off pretty much on a sheer drop. How it stayed and not fell down, I don't know. And it escapes me now because my logbook's not to hand. But everyone will be screaming at this, going, it's this particular wreck. I can't remember what it was. And my mate had a bit of an issue. He banged one of his first stages of his twin set, and he had a leak which he managed to solve. So on the swim back, that's when we thought we would see him. This is our first dive in the morning. So we're swimming back at about 5 to 7 meters. So we're staying out of the water column that they're going to be in. We're below them. And as we're swimming back, and we'd been took out on Zodiac, so it was quite a big swim back to our boat. and all of a sudden it just come in, and it was whopping, mate. It was massive. And it kind of, you know, the way they sort of snake in, don't they, in the swim, side to side almost. It kind of was like, look at us, and then just go, yeah, I don't care. And we were all like, fucking hell, fucking hell, fucking hell, we're going to get eaten. But everyone obviously played it cool. We all went sort of vertical rather than horizontal like you're supposed to. No one was kicking up and making loads of fuss. I got out too early. I thought, it's gone now. So a few of the lads stayed in a little bit longer. And so me and Ali were out on the boat, and next thing you could just see there was sharks swimming past again. So we were like, friggin' hell. All the kit was already off, like wetsuit was already down by my ankles, so it wasn't like...
Are you allowed to, because I've heard a few people mention it and a few people say, oh no, you're not allowed. When you finish the dive, are you allowed to water tread with the sharks? Because I was going to say, you could probably take your camera in and snap a few pictures from the surface, or is it, once you're out, you're out?
No, see, yeah, they don't discourage people getting back in the water, not necessarily for a second dive, but being in the water itself. But the thing with the oceanic whitetips, the training we were given was, when they're in that top 6 meters of water, that's their zone where they're looking for food. Right. So as long as we're below that, or if we're in that column, getting out of the water, we're certainly in a vertical position. And same with having colourful fins flipping around everywhere. They want you to be very slow and considered in your movements. Mm-hmm. So perhaps being on the surface snorkeling, whether it be horizontal or vertical, wouldn't be conducive with the training that they're trying to push out.
Yeah.
Now we did have an encounter with mantas. One of the lads we saw on the same site, but later on that day, there was, on the other end, so the southerly tip, there's like a...
Was that on the Coral Garden, was it?
It might be. It's about 45 metres. There's like a cleaning station, a little seamount. And we dropped on there, and you could hear everyone's computers going nuts because we were all on nitrox and the wrong mix at 45 metres. So we were just on the cusp. Obviously, we were lying still, so we weren't kicking the arse out of it swimming against the tide, which would have been detrimental to your ox toxicity, I guess. But so we were all cutting around there, and this thresher come in, and wow, mate, they are just... that tail is horrendous, isn't it? It's massive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got an encounter with one of them, but obviously that's deep, so snorkeling wouldn't have been so good. But that's kind of my reasoning to going onto a rebreather, that they are such a shy beast as such, aren't they? And so many other ocean-going animals are, that me being quiet in the water might encourage them in slightly more.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Sorry to interrupt this episode to drop another plug for my Patreon account, but I do spend several hours on each episode in the search for new guests, the recording, the post-production, the advertising, and sometimes days on my YouTube videos. So to help me keep up with its production and the frequency of releases, I'm asking for you to become a sponsor and Patreon of the Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew podcast. When you become a supporter, not only will you have my undying appreciation for helping to support the podcast, but you'll be able to take advantage of some of the many tiered benefits that come with it, some of which includes official merchandise. If you'd like to become a patron, go to www.patreon.com/fancyaBrew. There you'll see all the many levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. So without further ado, let's get back to this episode. Throughout lockdown, obviously I've had a bit to do with Nick and Caroline and Scubaverse. But I see that they post, you do a blog quite regularly, don't you? So they've been posting that. Tell us about that.
So my blog is, I made the first couple of issues, the first couple of blog entries about Blue Planet Aquarium, because it's my office, it's where, I spend most of my days. But the last one or two blogs, I did one on South Africa, to my trip to South Africa, because I just wanted people to understand that I'm not just Blue Planet Aquarium. I do other things as well. And, going to South Africa, I was able to talk about how amazing of an experience it was and why it's good for people. If you're an ocean lover or you want to be a marine biologist or a photographer, South Africa and the company that I went with is incredible because of the amount of opportunities you get. But I enjoy writing blogs because, how to put it, I enjoy talking about what I do and why I do it. And the blogs really allow me the opportunity to be able to do that. I'm currently in the the middle of writing another blog. I'm not going to say what it's about until it comes out, but I'm in the middle of writing another blog for Nick and Caroline, and that will be going up very soon. But yeah, Nick, I really I'm quite thankful of the opportunity Nick and Caroline have given me to be able to blog for them for Scubaverse, and yeah, it's incredible. Really, really enjoyed it.
Well, tell us more about that then, because I'll be honest, you're the, if not second, certainly third, possibly fourth person I've had on here to talk about sharks specifically, and have mentioned South Africa. Obviously, why? It's an obvious and it's a given.
Yeah.
But like I said before, I don't scare easily, but South Africa is perhaps not a country I'd jump and relish the chance at going to, whereas maybe Mozambique would be. And I think it's probably just me stereotyping. You certainly back in the early 80s, 90s, we heard a lot of bad about it. South Africa had tons of bad press. That's probably what scares me more than getting in the water and the marine life around it. So how did you find it? Was it a comfortable place to be? Did you feel safe?
So when we went to South Africa, the best way to put it, when I went, I didn't feel like I'd gone to the continent, at the bottom of the world, next stop being Antarctica.
Yeah.
And because they drive on the left side of the road like we do, and the landscape and sort of climate is very similar to the UK,
right,
bar it being a little bit warmer. So, and they're very exposed like we are, because we have the Atlantic Ocean coming against us, so it's very similar to us. But in terms of, if it's dangerous, the guys that live in South Africa always say, it's no more dangerous in the UK. But when we went, the guys were like, because they had an obligation to look after us because we were volunteers, they said, once it goes dark, if you need to go somewhere, we'll take you. Just because not far away from where we were, there was a township, which, the guys come down from the township and they have a few drinks in the bars. But to be honest, I never once felt unsafe. I never once felt like I was in danger or I was going to have something stolen from me. As long as you go and you're careful with your stuff, nothing will happen to you. I can't remember what the saying was. Is if you're foolish, then then things could happen. But again, I never felt unsafe.
That's good.
But to mention the marine life, like why I went, it's probably the only place I've gone where I've seen great whites, stingray, penguins, dolphins, humpback whales, and seals all in the span of 3 hours. It's like a truly bonkers place in terms of the sheer life that you've got there.
Yeah.
We've got foxes, they've got baboons. It's insane. It's an insane place to go. We went fat biking on the sand dunes in the evening, which was incredible.
Cool.
And we were tracking leopards through the sand dunes, and we never saw them, unfortunately. I'd love to have seen one. And caracal tracks, and then we were sat on the cliff face and we were watching right whales with their calves and humpback whales out in the. It's just an insane place. It really, really is insane. And the guys at White Shark Diving Company, which is the company I went out with, you couldn't pick a better company to go and work for. They're just so accommodating. And if you say to them, I don't want to go on the White Shark boat today, I'd like to go and swim with blue sharks out in the Agulhas Current, they're like, yeah, sounds, we'll organise a taxi. You'd have to pay for that, because of course you're choosing to do something different, but they've got no issue with you going and do something different if you want to, and it really is an incredible place. And if for anyone who's a photographer or a diver like yourself, like, I can't recommend it enough. It's honestly amazing.
Right. So were you volunteering, working for them? What was the script? I'm basically looking for my next year's October. October.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I love people asking what's happening. So basically, the gist was they're a research company, a volunteer company. So they take guests out diving or snorkeling in the shark cages with the great whites or white sharks.
Yeah.
And on the side of that, there's a lady called Mary Rowlinson who runs Shark Marine Institute, which is the volunteer side of the company. So you pay them, depending on how long you want to go out for. So if you want to go out for a month, it's X amount, and 2 months, on and on. And they kind of meet you halfway. So they sort your accommodation, they sort your food essentials, so your breakfast essentials, lunch essentials, all that sorted. All your fuel costs on the boat. the research vessel, everything that you do to help them is paid for. The only thing you need to sort is your flights, your diving costs. If you want to go diving with blue sharks, you have to pay for that. If you want to have ribeye steaks, for lunch, for tea, you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
But they meet you halfway, which is really nice. And I was essentially going out there to figure out if I wanted to be a photographer or if I wanted to be a marine scientist for a career.
Yeah.
And the Maldives helped kind of split me in the middle, though I was kind of leaning more towards photography. But South Africa really concreted it in that I wanted to be a photographer, a videographer, and just the amount of opportunities you get. Unfortunately, I was actually out there for the Orca Attacks. I'm not sure if you heard about that back in 2017. So when I first got to South Africa, a few weeks before I went, there was a few Instagram posts that went up on White Shark Diving Company. And they were saying that the white sharks have disappeared today due to orcas swimming into the area. Oh, the white sharks have swum away again. They won't be back for a few days. Orcas have been seen. So when I first arrived, the first day on the boat, I was stood there and I turned to Mary and I said, have you ever had orcas kill white sharks here in South Africa? Because it's been seen in Australia, it's been seen in California. Has it ever been seen here? She went, nope, it's never been seen here. And I was like, oh, okay, that's quite cool. That's nice that the orcas don't kill white sharks here. 3 days later, we got a phone call that a 4.8 meter female has washed up on shore. There's a big hole in her chest and her liver was missing. And immediately everyone was like, it's an orca attack. But they had no proof by just looking at the body. So Mary said to me and Luis and to Casey, who were the other two volunteers at the time, do you guys want to go and watch a great white shark dissection? And we all unanimously went, yes, we do. So we drove down to Marine Dynamics, where there was Alison Towner of Marine Dynamics, and they did the dissection. And I was there to witness them cutting the shark open, where they all unanimously went, the liver's missing, it's an orca attack. And she was the biggest white shark to be dissected in South Africa ever. She was the first ever white shark dissected anywhere in the world after an orca attack. And she was the first known orca and white shark predator-prey interaction in South Africa. So I got to witness the dissection. I got to help with the dissection in some small part. I didn't do a huge part. And it was just incredible to witness that. And we were stuck there, and there's a gentleman called Lalo who's worked down in South Africa. He's originally American, and he said people work their entire lives to witness a white shark dissection. This is one you're going to watch. You're never going to see another one. We were like, well, I'm honoured that I'm able to witness something as sad as it is.
Yeah.
We went back to the volunteer house. We were sat eating tea, and Imka, who was the research assistant, got another phone call, and she said, another white shark's washed up.
No.
Another white shark's washed up. And Alison had just gotten home, just took her shoes off. She got a phone from the first dissection. She got a phone call that another white shark washed up. So she put her shoes back on. They drove out. They picked up this male. He was in a much worse state. He was in complete bits. Yeah. His heart was missing, his liver was missing, and his testicles were missing as well. Just to add a bit of insult to injury.
Wow.
He was a little bit smaller. He wasn't as big as the 4.8 meter female. She was a little bit smaller. But we got there at the end of the dissection, so we didn't quite witness that one. Then they got a phone call during that same time frame from fishermen in the area that 2 more white sharks were washed up on shore on Dyer Island, which is, if you've heard of Shark Alley, it was on Dyer Island.
Yeah.
Marine Dynamics bolted straight out to get the bodies, and they couldn't find them, so they think that the tide came in, picked them up, and then dragged them down into the kelp forest where they can't dive. And we were like, okay, that's the end of that then. So for the first 2 weeks, I didn't see a live white shark. My first white shark was a dead one, which was a 4.8 meter female. And we went 2 weeks without any white sharks, and we were on the research boat one day, and this 2.5 meter white shark swims past, and it was just like, yay, I've seen a white shark, finally saw one. Really, like, it was just jumping on the research boat. I was scared the boat was going to tip over. And we had about a month to 5 weeks worth of really good shark activity. And then we had the orcas reappear and kill another white shark. And he had his tail attached, and his head, gills, and pectoral fins were attached. And then the middle of him was just the spine. And he was bright white because of the amount of time he'd been in the water. He completely drained of blood. So we all thought originally it was an albino great white that had been killed. And we were all like, oh my God, it's help! And they told us, like, no, all the blood's just gone. But I got to help out again in a very small part with that dissection as well, which was again incredible to witness. But the main goal of I've rabbited on about a very negative thing, and we talk about positive things. Sorry to waffle. The White Shark Diving Company's goal was to re-establish a population estimate in white sharks, because up until about 3 years ago, it was believed that there were around 1,000 white sharks left around South Africa. And Sarah Andriotti released a study about 2 or 3 years ago that showed that the new population estimate was between 520 and 312 white sharks left across the whole of the South African coastline. So the White Shark Diving Company's goal was to gather more data so that she could release a new population estimate to try and gain a better idea of exactly how many are in the area. So they do that by the guests, they get in the shark cage, this great white swim past, and the marine biologists are there with a camera snapping photographs of the fins. And on the trailing edge of the fin are the notches, a bit like a human fingerprint. They put that into Photoshop, they zoom right in, and then they count how many notches are in the 3 sections of the fin, because they cut it into 3 sections, and then they can try and identify that individual as well. But yeah, that's the main goal of it. And then they also do a secondary study, which is on smaller shark species like smooth hounds, puff-adder shy sharks, to try and gather an idea of how many small sharks there are, because that's what the great whites eat when they're young. So if they don't have the small sharks, there's no food for them when they're young. So that's the 2-part main parts of the study that they're carrying out at the moment. Sorry to waffle on.
No, don't. Honestly, this is all good, mate. This is gold. This prize-winning stuff. This. Or, I don't know, some kind of. That's if people listen. That's the thing, isn't it? So are they still looking for people to go along and help out? Right, because I'll be onto them straight away. Do you need? Is there any prerequisites other than you being a diver, or do you have to be some marine biologist, or what's the script?
So if you want to go on holiday and swim with great whites in a shark cage in South Africa, you're okay to go.
It's all right then.
And when you go, you will essentially go out there to experience the marine biology world. But if you just want to take photographs and have a nice time, you're able to do that as well. It's not a case of you're here, you will work, although they do want you to help in some way if you can. Which I can imagine, if you're a shark lover or an ocean lover or anyone out there I can't imagine anyone having a problem with helping save great whites, because they're wonderful. But yeah, you all you need to do is just, if you go onto their website, there's a thing where you can just fill out their form and send it off to them, and then they send you the availability of when you would be able to come out.
Awesome.
The best time to go is their winter, which is our summer, because that's when the white sharks, that's when you see the breaching white sharks, when they breach. Unfortunately, because of the orcas, I didn't see any of that, which I really wanted to, but again, it's a silver lining. I got to see things that not many people get to see. So, but yeah, I'd seriously recommend it for anyone, yourself, to go out there.
Has anybody been recorded being attacked by an orca yet? I don't think they have they?
No, I don't think so. Not apart from SeaWorld. I think that's.
In the wild.
I don't want to bash SeaWorld.
Yeah, let's not bash anybody, because I might have them on one time and they're like, nah mate, I'm not coming on because you were a dickhead that time. So getting on to Blue Planet then, other than you spending most of your sort of youth the helping out and getting to know people and learning and stuff, and then you having your degree, what other prerequisites did you need to get the kind of job that you're doing now, where you're mucking out the stables?
So like, to work on the visitor services team, I'm just going to start with that one. You have to be able to talk to people. That's like the foundation of the job. And you have to be able to do a multitude of different jobs for VS. Essentially, you're an entertainer. You're talking to people about animals. You will have to do some cleaning, maintenance, and front of house, front desk and stuff. But to work on dive team, again, you have to be confident, because you're going to be teaching, because we teach members of the public to come diving with the sharks. So there are people that work with us who don't have a marine biology degree, but they have the experience. So we've got 2 gentlemen who work on the team who are ex-military divers. So they went from ex-military to being handymen and being a dive instructor on the side. So they have that experience, which is a really a thing to really look at in terms of having a job on the dive team. But if you have a degree, that's also really, really good because you have a knowledge of the animals that you're working with. And we don't consider it as a, I've got this qualification, so I'm better than you. We don't work like that on dive team. We collectively teach each other. So if I don't know something about diving that one of the ex-military divers does, they teach me that, and then with passing conversation, we'll all talk about animal biology and behaviour, and we teach each other as we go. So it's a really, really good team in that respect that we all learn from each other. We've got someone on the team who worked in Durban in South Africa for many years, and she free dived with tiger sharks and with bull sharks and oceanic blacktip, and she's even swam in the water without a cage with great whites. So she's we're all collectively teaching each other. There's some guys who've worked at Blue Planet for many years, so for those of us who don't know what it was like many years ago, we all learn from how it used to be, including someone who used to hand feed the sand tigers when we used to hand feed them, whereas now we feed them to the surface. So it's just like a collective knowledge on the team. When you do your interview at Blue Planet, you do a 2-part interview. So you do your dry interview, you do your wet interview. So you come in, you'll sit in an interview room, as you would expect from a job interview, go through the application process in that way. And then we take you downstairs, we put a wetsuit on you, and we throw you in the tank. Well, not quite literally, but we put you in the tank with the sharks. And on your wet interview, what we're looking for is, are you comfortable in the water? Are you comfortable with the sharks? And do you have respect for the animals? So if the guys get in the water, they see a sand tiger and they go over and try and touch it, that's like a big no-no with us. We have a strict no-touch policy with the sharks. So we're looking for if you have all of those aspects when you get in the tank, and you can listen to instructions as well, because you go in with 2 divers who take you around the tank. We swim in like a conga line in the water, essentially, take you on a tour around the tank. And if we see that you're a good diver, you're comfortable, and you're respectful to all the animals, then that is essentially what we look for in that part of the interview. And I can't say I've never had anyone try and touch a sand tiger, which is good as well. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
I mean, they're supposed to be pretty placid and easy going, aren't they? But they do look pretty scary, to be fair.
They do. They look horrendous. That's the words of someone. Like, they look horrendous, but I think they're absolutely stunning animals. I think they're really, really cute. They've got a proper smiley, toothy grin. And how to put it, they are massive softies. They're really curious. Sometimes a little too curious. Like you'll just be cleaning rocks and you'd be in a world of your own, just cleaning rocks, and you'll look up and you'll have 250 teeth.
You're right.
From your face. You're right, mate. How you doing? And even though that you're comfortable with them and they're not going to hurt you, when you've got 250 teeth about 2 inches away from your face, you do still jump. They remind you that they are sharks. They always remind us never to become complacent with them. But we're always comfortable. We are comfortable diving with them, and they're comfortable with us as well. The sand tigers don't mind coming in close on public dives either. You think with more divers in the water that they'd be a bit more reserved, and they just don't care whatsoever. We've had sand tigers' teeth literally come this close to people's heads as they swim past, and they're just completely fine with it as long as you just leave them alone. They leave you alone. They just come in and have a look.
See, it must be pretty hard. I mean, knowing you've got to deal with like the HSE, diving at work regulations, ACORP, all this kind of stuff. It must be an absolute minefield to get Joe Blogs Public, who's a certified diver that you don't know how good, just because he's got a piece of paper, you don't know how good or confident they're going to be in the water, to get him in with something that, like you said, it's got a fur old mouthful of teeth and could probably do a bit of damage if it got a bit worried, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It must be a minefield. Do you obviously I've never been, so that's why I'm asking. But do you take them on like a try dive? Do you walk them in before you get them in with the something that could cause a bit of damage? How does it go?
So when you book your experience, we give you your date to come in. There's 2 slots usually on a day, so we have a 2 o'clock slot and a 4 o'clock slot. At the moment with COVID, we're only doing 4 divers per slot. Usually we do 6.
Okay.
We take you in, we do a classroom session, lasts about 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, depending on, how many questions you get throughout the classroom. We want to make sure that everyone's questions are answered before we go to the tank. We want everyone to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
We then take them behind the scenes into our quarantine area. We then kit them up. So we select them a wetsuit, we send them off to get changed. They then come back, we put them in our training pool, which is a round pool. It's usually used to hold large sharks. If we get large sharks in, they're quarantined in the large training pool. But when there's no sharks in there, we do all of our training in that pool. The training can last between 25 to 45 minutes, and we go through essentially what you do in a Discover Scuba Diving or a bubble maker. So it's the basic diving skills, so reg removal and recovery, mask clearing, all that sort of stuff. And we always gauge our students. So if we see someone is struggling, we tell them to stop, we send them to the surface, and we pair them up with another instructor. And all that instructor will do is just make them comfortable. So the other instructor won't go through any skills, they'll just make sure they're comfortable. And then the instructor will go through 1 or 2 other skills with other students, come back, run through the same skills with that student, and we can usually gauge them, in the training pool before we get in the tank, 99.9% of the time. And we won't take them in the tank until we're comfortable that they're comfortable. And then once they are, we take them in. We don't run our dives like you'd expect. So people always come to Blue Planet and they always say, "Oh, can we wear the flippers?" We're like, "Up the fins." But they don't wear fins when they get in. We walk you on the bottom, and we overweight you. So a normal student will wear between sort of 10 to 15 kilo. Doesn't matter who they are, whether they're teeny tiny or a big muscular bloke. We weigh you down, overweight you. We do this because if you're struggling underwater to walk, the sharks won't come near you. They do know when someone's not comfortable. And we go to sort of 2 or 3, 4 regular stops. We walk you to that area, we kneel you down, and then we wait for the sharks to come to us. We don't chase the sharks will come to us if they want to. We usually find the best time to dive with the sharks is between sort of late April to mid-May all the way to about end of October is the best time of year to dive with them, because they come out of their mating season in sort of mid-April, and then they go through a phase of sleeping and eating. So they gorge themselves on food for fattening up for the winter, and then they sleep to reserve energy. And the sharks, mainly dingle, will literally cruise past you literally half a mile an hour and taking 10 minutes to swim past you, get a really good look at them. If anyone is struggling before they get in the water and we don't feel 100% comfortable about taking them down, we have steps where we get in and we just sit them on the top step, and their head's about that much under the water, and they can still see everything. They still see just as much as they would do right down at the other end of the tank, but they're just in a safer spot, so if they need to come up, they can just stand up and their heads be above the water.
That's cracking. A lot more from the answer I expected, but not out of disrespect. I was really asking because it makes perfect sense that you would do that, but it's not something I would have thought, having not been. Tell me where you want to go in your career then. Not necessarily wanting to leave Blue Planet Aquarium, but you talked about being a photographer and a videographer.
I'd love to be like the dream, and I think it always has been the dream, but I never acted on it because I always had my heart set on being a marine biologist. But then once I had that wake-up call, the dream is to be a cameraman and underwater photographer, cameraman, videographer for the likes of BBC, on projects like Blue Planet 2 or Blue Planet 3, if that ever happened. And not just marine life, but all life. Like, I'd love to be able to go on location and film the blue-faced orange snow monkeys and all these incredible things, because I believe that research and the media go hand in hand in protecting the planet. Research is great for Congress and government, but the media is really the main source of the best way to convey a message to the general public. And I love the planet. I love the animals that we have. I don't want them to disappear. And the best way to make them stay and protect them is to make people care. Look at Blue Planet 2 when plastic was the big thing that was mentioned about that. Look at what's changed with plastic since 2017. It really is insane. And I just really want to be able to do my part to protect the planet. And I feel that fulfilling my dream of being a cameraman underwater photographer is the best way that I can help us do that. So I'd love to be on the next big project and helping out on that.
It's dead exciting, isn't it? But we are 1 in 1,000,000 people that want to do it. That's the downside.
Yeah.
So it's getting yourself in front of the right people, perhaps, isn't it? And being able to showcase. So being in front of like NUPG, where we've got the right people to talk to and get guidance and perhaps do the right bit of networkings, we are really lucky to have that kind of on our doorstep, aren't we?
Absolutely. For me, when I was a kid, Shark Week was the best week of the year. I would sit in front of, and if I wasn't able to sit in front of the TV, I'd tape it on VHS and watch all the shows when I got home. You know what I mean? I loved Shark Week, but as I got older, I started to watch it for the conservation side and for the science side because I loved learning. I still love learning. I want to learn new things about these animals because there's so much to learn about them. And then, I started scrolling down. I started to notice a few things. The lair of the killer shark and the legend of old Hitler, the great hammerhead that ate sailors. And, the search for Megalodon, it was a fake documentary. And I watched it and I was like, basically what Discovery was saying, and I'm not slamming Discovery when I say this, is basically sharks aren't cool on their own. That they have to make up these stories and these titles to make them cool. And sharks are the coolest animals on Earth, in my opinion. If a shark pooed on me, I'd find that the coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? It really is that incredible. And I think that there's so much more that we could say and do about sharks in Shark Week that would, I think, get people interested. I didn't watch Shark Week the year that there was a documentary about the Orca Attacks when I was out there in South Africa, because I thought that it would just be a load of, we're not going to sound horrible, of the nonsense. Yeah. And then I realised that documentary was on, and I was like, I've missed an actual scientific documentary, and I was absolutely gutted. But, back when I was a child, there was Sam Gruber, there was Dr. Eric Ritter, there was these really big personalities in shark research, and unfortunately I don't see as much of that anymore, which is a real shame, because I would love to see more science orientated shark documentaries on Shark Week, and I do think that they're starting to go back that way, which is really good, and hopefully we will get to that point. But I do also agree with where you're coming from as well, by saying that the stunts will get the adrenaline junkie people interested in seeing the stunts on Shark Week as well.
Definitely. So it's just getting in front of the right people in it, and being able to display your enthusiasm and skill set, which I think kind of is what this is about, is to highlight there's different people out there from different backgrounds and areas of diving that are just screaming out for another, tell people about me. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, is you've got a message to sell, but you clearly want to go somewhere with what you're doing. So I don't know, you may never get in front of anyone because of me, but a load of people might find out more about you, and your exposure, my exposure, all grows. And I think we're all in this together, trying to get somewhat the same aim. Don't get me wrong, I'm 40 years old now. I've got, as much as it's a dream to be a cameraman for BBC, it's not really going to happen for me. But if I could do...
You don't know, do you? It's how to... There's a sentence that was said to me last year. We had the BBC come to Blue Planet last year, and they filmed The Secrets of Skin. I'm not sure if you watched the episode on sharks.
No, I missed it.
But they filmed they got in the presenter there that he was talking about shark skin with our sand tigers, and they were swimming right next to him, as they always do. And the cameraman, Johnny Rogers, he helped out on projects such as Planet Earth 2, Blue Planet 2. He does Deadly 60 with Steve Backshall. He does all the cave diving with Steve. Really, really incredible the work he's done. He scuba dived with narwhals. Do you know what I mean? He's been there, done that. And I was just listening to him talk, and it was amazing to him him talking about what he's done. And I just asked him a few questions, like how to get involved in the industry, who to speak to, what to do. And he said the same thing as you. If you don't have your HSC, there's not a chance. You've got to have your HSC. But he said that if you speak to anyone they'll tell you, there's no way into the industry. There might be similarities in how people got involved, but everyone's got their own individual way into the industry. And I really took away from that because, a lot of people, because he comes from a camera background, he's been doing it since he was 16. And every person I've ever spoke to in the industry, I've come into it a completely different way as to how myself or how yourself would do it.
If you can make some decent content, it only needs to be a 5-10 minute thing. I think that would be a very easy way as a videographer. I think it's just a case of writing to the right people in it and putting yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Well, I think at 1 hour 37, I bet my battery's about to run out.
I hope you've got plenty of footage, content there. That's the word I was looking for.
Right. Well, have a nice day. I'll see you soon.
Will do.
Cheers, pal.
Thank you very much, mate. Have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Take it easy. No.
Take it easy, bud. See you soon.
Bye. So that brings us to an end of episode 49 with my friend Donovan Lewis. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel. The link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And to become a patron of the podcast, visit www.patreon.com/Fancy a Brew. There you'll be able to see the different levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. If there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, please let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.